I am Bryce Newberger, and this is the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix, Chapter 6. The dew was still fresh on the ground, with a light mist hovering ankle-high as Bryn was dragged from his house. He looked back, straining to see over his shoulder and through his escort. If he was perturbed before, it became a stark white fear as he noticed a large green figure standing outside his door. It was Skadel, who was lurking in a spot that Bryn couldn't have seen him from his previous vantage point. His fear turned to rage. Bryn found his feet and jumped back, causing the captor to fall prone as he landed on top of him. He rolled back onto his feet and rose. The befuddled Captain Bird began to scramble to get up, but Bryn gave a fierce knee to the face. Skadel set a trespassing foot through his threshold. Bryn growled and hooked his shackled hands around the beastman's neck. Skadel let out a startled gurgle. "You did this!" Bryn accused in a frenzy. The two stumbled back out of the doorway. Skadel leaned forward, letting his size leverage Bryn's feet from the ground. He then jumped into a dive roll in a surprisingly impressive feat of strength, resulting in the brute landing with his shoulder into Bryn as they hit the ground. Certain that he had broken some ribs, Bryn cursed that he had underestimated the brute's strength. Skadel gave a small chuckle. "That was pretty good." He lifted Bryn to his feet. "Let him go!" A threatening 11-year-old voice came from the house. Skadel looked to see Eldrich standing in the doorway holding his father's sword. Skadel burst into uncontrollable laughter and thrust Bryn into the clutches of the now conscious yet bloodied Captain Bird. When he finally found his voice, Skadel said, "I ain't a dog that you could chase off with your stick, boy." He walked slowly and imposing towards Eldrich. When he was within distance, Eldrich gave a mighty swing, but the giant merely kicked it aside with his boot and grabbed the boy by his throat and hoisted him up. His face reddened as he gasped for air. "Yuz interfering with the murderer investigation. Child, no, we can't have that." Eldrich's vision turned to black as his lack of oxygen got the best of him. Bryn gritted his teeth against the pain as he began to shoulder toss the captain. Skadel released and let the boy drop to the dirt. Suddenly, free from her shock, Ada screamed and rushed to Eldrich's side. Skadel turned his cruel gaze to the mother, but before he could think of a twisted way to enforce his law, another small voice cried out. "No!" yelled Cal. It was at that moment something peculiar happened. Everyone standing suddenly lost their footing and fell to the floor. Skadel quickly shot back to his feet. He was instantly embarrassed that a warrior such as himself had stumbled before a child. Trying his best to still seem imposing, he turned back towards Bird, who was also getting back to his feet, and barked, "Hold him in the cells till I get back. I have some investigating to do." He stepped through the door and closed it behind him. As it swung shut, the last thing Bryn saw was Teddy's terrified, tear-stroked little face before the guard knocked him out cold. At the tavern, in a back booth, sitting behind a large mug of ale, there was a figure in drab, dark gray garments. The only identifying feature, aside from his bleak ensemble, was his unique glove with two metal-tipped fingers. Dazon took another long drag of ale. Last night had been tough, and his cover had almost been blown. He couldn't risk any more close calls. His mission depended upon it. It was still early morning, but late enough that the working classes were all setting up shop by now. He was practically the only one in the tavern at this time, but the bartender was in such a foul mood that Dazon knew he would only interact with someone if absolutely necessary. He would have to move on soon before people started to question what he actually did for a living. "Oh, that!" the bartender lamented in exasperation to himself. Dazon had grabbed an ale to don the appearance of a traveler and tramp who was just casually passing through town. Now he regretted his choice. The mug was about half empty, and to drink any more would start to affect his senses a bit much. It was a pity, too, because ale was a precious drop in this town after what had happened during his previous night's escapade. He accidentally spilt the rest of its contents on the ground as a way of excusing himself from drinking it, left a few drakes for the mess, and exited the tavern. Once in the street, he noticed a man being carted off in shackles towards the guardhouse. The man was large for a human. He stood just shy of 2 meters with large muscles obviously built from hard work. He realized the man was the town smithy. "So this is the murderer," he thought. "Well, I had to get pegged on someone." He wondered what evidence they would allegedly find against him. He decided more information may be a worthwhile treasure. Should he get caught in a tough spot, it would be nice to know what to deny. Ada sat on the floor in the corner of the house as Skadel rummaged through their room. She had attempted to get up twice, but was threatened each time by the hulking investigator. She had Teddy clutched close to her as she shushed him, stroked his hair, and told him everything would be all right. "This is all a mistake," she said. "When you all get home, your father will be back here waiting for you, and we'll have a big dinner to make up for this horrible morning." Cal was about to ask something when Skadel emerged from the master bedroom. "Found it!" he sneered as he prized a punching knife, the one Bryn had sold him. "And what's that supposed to be?" Ada asked as if she had never seen it before. Skadel took his time to respond to give emphasis. "The murder weapon." "The what?" was all she could manage to say. Skadel rose to his full imposing height with a delighted look of victory, and then left the house without answering. As the door shut, Ada quickly turned to the children. "Amora, stay home and take care of Cal and Teddy." "What about class?" Cal asked. "Never mind that," she answered. "Eldrich, you must go to the shop and complete today's orders in your father's stead." She said this as she ran into her room and grabbed her shawl and a purse full of drakes. Eldrich nodded with understanding. Amora just sat on the ground without emotion. Ada clasped her by the shoulders. "Amora, everything will be all right." "But Dad's gone," she spoke through tears. "Things seem bad now," Ada brushed Amora's hair from her face. "But in the end, everything is going to be okay. You'll see." She smiled, then got up and kissed Eldrich on the head, gave Teddy a hug, and looked to do the same for Cal. But Cal was gone. Cal tore off through the forest, trying his best to make it to the guardhouse before his father was locked up. He kept away from the path so he could pass the stupid ogre without him knowing. It wasn't long before he was in town, but he was too late. His father was already secured in a cell. That wouldn't stop Cal, though. He scrambled to the back of the building and looked for a way to the roof. He saw a small vented opening that allowed air to pass through the storage space among the main floor. Perfect, he thought. Now he just needed to find a way up there. He looked around for boxes or crates. He noticed a two-wheel cart parked nearby. With a smile of satisfaction on his face, Cal rolled it over to the side of the building. He climbed his makeshift tower as it rattled, rocked, and shifted. With some haste, a few whoas, and a lot of luck, he got his fingers into the venting grate. He gave a hard tug, but it was clamped tight. Cal pulled again, but it didn't give. The cart rolled back a bit and almost sent him tumbling to the ground. He pulled fiercely against the grate and put both his feet to either side of it. Now the boy was positioned so that if the grate did come loose, he would fall off with it. This didn't seem to occur to him until the vent flung off and he was on his way down. He only fell about an inch before a dark hand shot from the storage space and pulled him inside. The boy was trying to scream, though Dazon wasn't sure if it was due to the shadowy nature of his rescue or because the lad still thought he was falling. Dazon decided to test the latter by releasing him. Cal finally opened his eyes to see he was securely in the storage space and not falling to his death. But how? He wondered aloud. He tried to put two and two together. One moment he was falling, the next he was where he wanted to be. As he pondered this, he noticed that through the space on the floorboards, he could see his father sitting at the table in shackles. He decided not to question the matter further. Dazon stared at the boy incredulously. This boy's an idiot, he thought. He then wondered who this boy was and why he seemed to have equal interest in the interrogation about to commence. At that moment, a large beastman walked into the room with the guard captain. Bryn watched as Skadel sat in the chair opposite of him, and Bird stood in the background. "Since when do you take such an active role in guard work?" His voice was filled with contempt. Skadel chuckled. "Since you murdered my dear friend Smythe, and due to my privileged status with the governor, I get to be chief prosecutor in this heinous crime." Bryn decided he needed to play his cards carefully here, where right and wrong would surely become subjective. "And what proof do you have that I did it? Why would I even want to kill Smythe?" That was the question Skadel had been waiting for all morning. With an eagerness that betrayed emotion, he pulled out a satchel and threw it on the table. Its contents spilled out to reveal a letter that started with, "My dear Winston," and ended with, "Love, Ada." As Bryn stared at the letter in disbelief, he caught sentences like, "Leave Bryn. He doesn't know. Until we can be together." Skidale pushed his face towards Bryn until they were nose to nose. Rancid breath seeped through his sinister grin. "What for revenge, of course." Thank you for listening. I'm Bryce Newberger, and this has been the Kinship Chronicles, Children of the Phoenix. If you enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to purchase the full book, then either look up New Books on the Google Play bookstore, NEU Books, or simply click the link in the description. The book is only $5, and I appreciate your support.